It's like, once you get here, especially someone who's from here, like, someone who's either good friends with them or like, has some sort of connection with them. And I imagine in your business, especially in, realty, that makes it pretty convenient.
Certainly. It's certainly valuable.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Are you from here?
Yeah.
Right. That's what I thought. Where'd you go to high school?
CNS.
Oh, cool. What year did you graduate?
2007.
Oh, 07.
Yeah,
North Star.
Yeah, North Star. But I spent a decent amount of time in like middle school and junior high, and then the first part of high school in Faith Heritage and Chapel. So my parents sent me to Christian school. So I kind of like transferred. I do know. I know John Sorber.
Oh, okay. Yeah, John's a man. So I grew up next to, we were neighbors growing up.
Oh, that's
And obviously he was in our class at West Johnny, and he just texted me. I was downtown for a birthday party, a 3-year-old birthday party. He's like, saw you and the fam. He's like, I was driving away, but I wanted to say hello. Great family. Great guy.
Small town. Yeah, and then you probably know Nick Camuso.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Nick Camuso is probably
a fellow linebacker.
Yeah. He, I went to Nick's wedding.
Okay.
Yeah, I met him while at Syracuse.
That's right.
He was really good friends with one of my best friends, a roommate at the time, Pat Luckett. I don't know if he's kind of in the sports circle.
Okay, yeah.
Well, we were both at Syracuse. He was the manager of the basketball team, so like traveled with the team in Bayheim. He's a big.
Yes, yeah, okay, I know who. Yes,
yeah,
I know
tall,
exactly.
Right,
I played against him in CYO.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, he's a great basketball player.
Yeah, I met Nick through him, and then became close
Eric
friends.
Riley.
Eric Riley, of course.
Yeah. So if you're hanging with him,
and then maybe Jackie Wood. I don't know if that.
Oh, Jackie, yeah, absolutely.
Those are probably the people that I'm closest with.
Jenny,
from West Virginia.
Nice,
good people.
So you went to CNS. You went to Cuse right out of high school, right? Syracuse.
I actually went to OCC first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
why? You didn't know what you wanted to do, or what?
Yeah, and also it was a financial play.
Yeah,
just go to OCC first.
You're ahead of your time, man.
Figure it out, and then transfer in. In hindsight, would I have done it differently? Probably.
Why do you say that?
So from the time I was 14 to 21, the priority in my life was a band that I was in. So. I played rock music in this band called Dead Rose.
Okay.
And we took it seriously. I was the youngest person ever win a Syracuse Area Music Award. Like we won some Battle of Bands and got connected with a booking agent relatively early. And so, I kind of got to live in a very narrow local sense, like this rock star fantasy, kind of thing.
That's awesome.
In a very small local sense. But it was something I was really passionate about and wanted to still do. So I was trying to.
It was the dream.
It was the dream, but I wasn't super academically focused. It was not the main priority in my life. And once I got to Syracuse, my perspective shifted. Because I'm analytically minded. I'm ambitious, and kind of when I was in that circle, that environment, my eyes kind of opened to the opportunity, and I got more serious about school. And I kind of had like a chip on my shoulder a little bit that I hadn't taken it more seriously earlier.
Yeah.
Not that like Syracuse was a bad school. It was a great school, but I, to a certain degree, felt like I had maybe not lived up to maybe my full potential in high school and before that. So
I think a lot of people could probably say that. I would say you probably came to it quicker than I did. So you went to OCC. Is that when you kind of, it triggered for you that like, hey, I'm going to focus. I'm going to buckle down here for the next.
No, not until SU.
Okay. So then how did you end up at SU? So you finished at OCC. You were like, another financial play, live at home, go to SU? I don't know if SU is a financial play with the cost of tuition there, but.
I ended up getting some good scholarships.
Oh,
and
that's huge.
That it was very, very helpful.
Yeah,
definitely. But I think that was always kind of the plan. That was always the track, was go there and then transfer. Again, Syracuse was the only school I applied to.
Yeah.
Okay. OCC, so.
Well, after JUCO, if you do well, you're pretty certain to get into most universities, which is huge. Sounds like, well, you knew your talent too. You're, analytically minded. Like you kind of knew. I mean, well, actually, you were Maxwell, right?
I did Whitman undergrad.
Oh,
finance and marketing.
So okay. So
my path was a little bit, maybe a little bit strange. So I transferred into Syracuse.
Junior year, right?
Junior year. Yeah. And because of the way the articulation agreement between OCC and SU fell, I lost some credits. So I kind of ended up being a little like a semester behind.
Okay.
Even though the credits transferred, like I had extra credits for like the humanities bucket or something. So like they transferred, but they didn't count towards a degree, and certain classes I took at OC2 turned into one. So long story short, like I was a little bit behind. And so I ended up graduating a little bit later.
Okay.
So, but I get to SU, my eyes kind of open to the possibilities. I kind of realize that, oh my gosh, I'm squandering some of my abilities. I have a serious opportunity here. I need to take it seriously. And I did. I got serious, super involved in like clubs and activities and leadership opportunities. Was focused on academics, and I even joined like a business fraternity, Delta Sigma Pi, when I was in Whitman.
Okay.
And at the time I met this guy who was the student body president, and he was probably the most impressive peer I had ever met. He was one of those guys that's like, he came out of the womb like a 40-year-old mature man.
Accomplished.
Very accomplished. I just really looked up to him. And at the time, I think I was, marketing and entrepreneurship as a major, but he was like a finance major, and he had just finished this internship for GE's, their financial management program. It's like a leadership development thing. And he's telling me all about it and how he did it and how that's his path and all the opportunities that it would bring. And I was just like, that's it.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. Like let's do that. So I switched over my entrepreneurship major to finance, and like aims to do that. And that's the path I took. And so outside of,
but what led you to Maxwell?
So I didn't go back to Maxwell until after I moved back to Syracuse.
Okay. So you graduated, started working for GE.
That's right.
And how long were you with GE?
About 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I did this 2-year leadership development program. And the thing with that program was every 6 months, they would move you into a different location, a different business, and a different sub function within finance. And the premise there, and you had to take graduate level coursework while you were doing it. And the premise is, but it's a good opportunity because the idea is that like the bulk of development and learning probably, they say, happens while you're trying to figure everything out, get good, make an impact, and then, diminishing returns. After you've already kind of figured it out, year 2, or they say even the next 6 months, you're really not learning nearly as much as you did for the first 6 months. So let's cram in, 4 to 6 years of experience within those 2 years. Yeah. And that was kind of the pipeline for their like CFO positions for all of their different sub businesses. Cause GE is just a massive organization.
So you did that for 5 years.
So I did that for 2, and then I knew that I hated it.
Oh, okay. At what point were you like, all right?
Almost immediately. I was like, corporate finance is just not for me. Yeah. It was, I saw it for what it was, an opportunity to like build a lot of skill sets that would be transferable, that would be valuable. This
can make a lot of money.
I'm just not, an accountant, I like analysis for the purpose of like action, to understand, to, make choices. But the financial planning and analysis cycle of forecasting and analyzing and reporting, and, it was never ending, and it wasn't tied enough to anything that like made me excited. Yeah. So I switched when I graduated from that program. I went from GE Energy to GE Capital and rolled out into a senior analyst position within a market intelligence team at GE Capital. And so I kind of knew that in my mind, I was always kind of like thinking that I wanted to go back to grad school to be like something, I wanted to do something prestigious. I wanted to do something impressive, right? We can psychoanalyze why those motivational forces later. And we certainly can, but
had some drive.
Yeah, I had some drive, but I thought, I want to be a management consultant. I want to work for one of these elite firms and go into private equity. That was kind of like the dream. So I switched over to GE Capital and did this research and analytics role because it was kind of like internal consulting, and I thought it would be more interesting, and it definitely was. And I spent like about another 3 years doing that.
So you enjoyed that a lot more.
I enjoyed that a lot more. Yeah, absolutely.
But at some point, you were like,
well,
not it.
Yeah. Actually, I don't want to emphasize the level of enjoyment, because the crux of it was, I ended up getting into some good business schools, and was at a crossroads, and like I had that chip on my shoulder. I was still, let the wrong motivations, I think, steer and orient my life. But I think I needed to prove some stuff to myself before I could really think clearly about things. And so I got into some schools, and I was like, I don't want to take out another $200,000 of debt, just to then, have golden handcuffs, so to speak, to kind of be beholden to a path that I thought really wasn't right for me. And, as you grow, you have greater and greater sense of awareness. You get to, I moved forward with imagining what a life would be like, or imagining what a career would be like. And as I went down that path and experienced it, I had to look in the mirror and say, is this really how I want to spend my life? Is this really what's going to make me come alive? And so I ended up not going back to business school, even though I'd been like narrowly obsessed with it, because I kind of proved myself that I got in, I could do it.
That's a big part. Like I've said it before, like, I do a mentorship program. I go, a big part of your career is learning what you don't want to do.
For sure.
As opposed to what you do want to do. And then you just keep kind of pivoting, refining. And obviously, you went down that path. So you decided business school wasn't it.
Yeah. I did a lot of pivoting and a lot of,
I mean, I'm 35. I'm still not positive.
100%. Yeah.
But
exactly right. But so, I was in a really fortunate position because after I decided not to go back to business school, GE decided to divest itself of GE Capital. So the group that I was in was getting, basically the portfolio was being liquidated. And so what that meant for me is like, I was probably gonna leave anyways, and they're like, hey,
give you severance?
Oh, absolutely. Nice. Yeah. They gave me like a nice lump chunk severance and some money to go, to re-education. And so I did like a very stereotypical, like eat, pray, love journey, cause I'm a little bit like
how old were you?
Oh, geez. So bad, probably 27.
Okay.
26. Yeah. Yeah. And, I definitely had like just to paint the picture of my personality a little bit. I studied abroad in London undergrad.
Okay.
And then I had to graduate one semester late. And with the hiring cycles and the recruitment cycles, I had like this 6-month period of time. So instead of graduating early,
like December to, the summer.
I did a semester at sea program. I took one more extra semester of college. And that was a program where basically they put like 500 kids on a ship and you circumnavigate the globe. And
it's like a cruise ship?
It's like a cruise ship. It's a small cruise ship. And
you just Carnival cruise for 6 months?
pretty much, except, I know I'm like all over the place taking this detour, but in order to paint the picture.
I've never even heard of that.
But the group of kids there were it's filled with people that just like had a hungry lust for life, wanted to make the world a better place, wanted to experience it. So it's like just it's just a self-selecting group of people that were just excited and passionate about exploring. And the reason why I ended up doing this is I came back from my semester abroad in London, and a buddy of mine, one of my close friends, I don't know if you know Marcus Williams. He's on JD's basketball team that won the state championship.
Okay, yeah, I know the name for
6'9".
sure. Yeah, okay.
He's one of my childhood friends. And I come back and I'm like, oh yeah, London was amazing. Europe was fantastic. It was just had the most fun. It was just a big party. And he comes back from semester at sea and he's like, it was the most meaningful experience of my life.
Interesting.
And I'm just like, dude, you trumped me, And he proceeded to just, explain. And it was just something I needed to experience because.
Is that through Syracuse?
Or was it was University of Virginia was the academic sponsor. Okay. It was just like, I had that time. It was like weird with the way my credits worked. I technically was done at Syracuse, but wouldn't start work for a while.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this fits, this works. And basically you're on this ship with like world-class professors. Like my professors were from like Columbia, University of Virginia, UPenn, because it's like, they can attract the best professors because it's like, hey, do you want to,
it's going to take a little 6-month break.
And I only really, I didn't need the credit. So I just like took the most interesting classes to me. Yeah. Like philosophy of religion class was like my favorite, like human rights class. And then you take these classes and you're out on the ocean for half the time. And you port into a country and then you literally just have free reign to just go and explore. Nice. And then you come back and you have these experiences, but your experiences are different than everybody else's because they would just go off and do their own thing. But man, the fodder for conversation and like, and And then as it iterates, you're looking forward to like the next place and looking back at where you just were. And it just created this environment that was just so personally enriching, and definitely like within me, like put like just, I don't know, this wanderlust of sorts. It just, kind of broaden my worldview a lot.
Yeah.
And so I had in me still a desire to go experience more. So when I had that crossroads with GE and they gave me that severance package, and I was just like, I don't think this was the path that is right for me. I don't know what path I want to take. I was like, I'm going to go travel. I'm going to go figure it out. And so
if GE didn't liquidate the portfolio, do you think you would have stayed on longer? Or did it just kind of the stars align that you're like, now's the time?
I probably would have stayed on longer but would have just pivoted directly to another job.
Eventually.
Yeah. And I wonder, how different.
It's funny how those things work out.
It'd been because it was on that I took a 5-month trip, 3 months in Southeast Asia, a month in India, a month in Turkey. Wow. I did like a lot of soul searching, I did like stayed at the ashrams, did the yoga retreats, did the meditation, did some volunteering. And through that, like I kind of like my eyes opened that, there's a hierarchy of values within myself. And there's a whole bunch of different motivational forces and reasons for doing this or that. And they're all fine. But I realized that I had to make sure that I was aligning those hierarchically with my value system and live in alignment. And when I really looked hard at my life and my values being, family and community and some things that were just like deeper and more important, I wasn't living that. And so my dad was sick at the time with Parkinson's and had been for a little while. And it just during that trip, I just realized that like I care about home, I care about a sense of community. And moving around, I felt like I was building my life on sand, and the relationships I was building. Yeah. And so it just kind of like crystallized, and I was like, I need to go back home. I need to spend time with my family. I need to invest and build in my community. And that's ultimately what brought me back to Syracuse about 8 years ago.
Okay. But you still had the desire to go back to school.
Well, I had my GMAT score for business school. And man, I took the class. I studied every single Saturday.
Yeah.
After work, like, because I was aiming to get into the top programs. Like I put my self-worth into that and really, really tried. And, glad to say I got like a really good score. And I was kind of sitting on that score. And it was,
you're ready to capitalize on it.
It's only when, it expires after 5 years and then it just goes away.
Okay.
And so for me, I realized that coming home back to Syracuse, I knew I wanted to be part of the revitalization of Syracuse.
Yeah.
And a big part of when I was doing my soul searching was about like myself, my skill sets, and really what excites me and what makes me come alive, and aligning my work with that in an authentic way that's good for me, good for my family, good for my community now and in the future. I wanted to be all those things. Yeah. And so real estate development and small business, I don't call it entrepreneurship, small business, starting small businesses seemed to be something that I was excited about, that I had skill sets that would help me be, effective. And, I had taken this economic development class that talked about this feedback loop between, they called it a quality of place, which is basically like the built environment and quality of life kind of in one. And then, people, and then like the larger organizations and businesses, these three pieces that feed back into it. And you can think about like a place like Austin, right? That has the quality of place. It has Zilker Park, right? And Barton Springs, is that right?
Barton Springs, yeah.
And just 6th Street, and it's just like, and it's just the quality of place, the quality of life there is so great that it attracts all of these people.
Yeah.
Right. And you go there and it's like you meet all these interesting people that are passionate about their life, want to, see themselves as having a high degree of agency in their life and want to live out their life. So you have all of these quality people there. And so because of that, large organizations can move their headquarters there. They can build businesses there because the talent is there.
Yeah.
But then all of those things feed back on one another. Because like I said before, I saw, the quality of place attracts the people, which attracts the businesses, but also having the businesses attracts the talent. right? And then having all of that tax revenue and the people there can then support redevelopment, new businesses, right? So it all feeds back, and it's like, and that's what happens over decades, spiraling, making things better, attracting more people. And so that was kind of the model that I had in my head. And Syracuse, what's our history, right? We were built on manufacturing that went away. So the business, as one of those key drivers of that feedback loop, that was gone. What's the consequence? The people move away. What happened to the built environment? Businesses closed, right? And so we were on that same feedback loop, spiraling downwards. And so when I would come and visit, and I saw stuff like Pike Block and Original Grain, and like there were some other developments at the time, I saw what was happening downtown as part of a larger reurbanization movement, and that really that excited me. It gave me optimism about the region. And so that was my framework coming back. And I'm like, I want to redevelop buildings. I want to, I want to start businesses. Like that's something that I can do that I think would actually have a meaningful impact on perceived quality of place, and, that was my philosophy moving back. Yeah.
Today's episode of Upstate Impact is brought to you by Renewal by Andersen of Central New York. Summer's here, and it's the perfect time to upgrade your windows. With Renewal by Andersen's exclusive Fibrex material and expert installation, you'll get a cooler, more energy-efficient home that looks as good as it feels. Click the link in our show notes to schedule your free quote today. Renewal by Andersen, superior products, exceptional service. Yeah, it's funny how it came full circle for you. You started in entrepreneurship. And obviously it's more than just entrepreneurship, but that was your initial major, correct? Right. Yeah, and then you take all these different directions, right? You become an analyst, or I should say you do these study abroad, you study at sea, and you have all these different impressive experiences. You go to grad school, and then you come back to what you originally did. And it's also funny too that, you're like, all that, you didn't necessarily need to do that, right? You're a real estate, realtor. Yeah. You could have literally paid a few $100 or however much the class costs and just right into that.
Yeah.
But would you be the same person who's sitting here? Absolutely not. Would you have the kind of the driven, the mission in mind of what you want to do? Yeah. Because like, I feel like, or becoming a realtor is kind of a low, just getting your real estate license. It's low hanging fruit.
Low barriers of entry to that industry.
But you need something else behind it. And clearly you have that. And it's really cool to hear because like, obviously I see your Instagram ads, right? I see what you're doing, but I would never have heard this story. And that's kind of what got you into it.
Well, originally I was kind of embarrassed to be honest, because the path back was, I came back from this trip so excited. I had some of this educational credit. So I spent the summer and fall at NYU just getting like a certificate, to kind of like, because I had the finance background and the marketing background, but I wanted to really understand it through a real estate lens. So I took, 7 or 8 classes, got a professional certificate, moved back, kind of feeling like, oh, big fish, small pond. I got so much to contribute, maybe a little overinflated sense of myself. And then quickly that got right-sized, for a couple of reasons. One, we don't have the scale of development organizations that would have a type of position that I would have been qualified for there. If I went to New York or Austin, there's development associate, acquisition analyst, roles in large organizations that I could then go and learn from. And those just didn't exist at the companies here. And the lesson that I was told when I was trying to network was, you got to go to a brokerage. You got to learn the market. You got to learn the people,
how it's done,
and then you got to just do it. You need to get the money and you got to do it. And so that's what I tried to do. And I got connected with Steve Case because he had a brokerage and he was doing development over at Acropolis. And so that's what brought me to Acropolis initially. But when I first started, I was a finance guy, I just want to do commercial. I want to do the impressive stuff. I want to do the stuff that I can be proud of. Yeah. And the thing is, Syracuse isn't growing exponentially. That just wasn't the case. So
not yet.
Not yet. No. I'm all in on Syracuse. But the pie was what it was, and the reality is the people that were moving and shaking with these big assets, they've been doing it for a long time. They had their guys.
Yep.
So
I mean, we talked about earlier the connections in Syracuse,
connections.
right? You know, it's hard to break in. That's, I guess, one downfall, right? Is people, especially established like that, you know, whether it's family or just they've been here their whole life, they have their people and they trust their people because they grew up with their people or grew up with their families. So it is, I'm sure it was hard to kind of break in.
It's hard to break
in. But you had to start somewhere.
Had to start somewhere. And I will say there are people that got in the business around the time that I did and even afterwards that now are just massively successful in the commercial world. So, you know, but for me, I wasn't initially super successful on that side and ended up getting into residential real estate because I wanted to work with smaller investors that maybe were doing multifamily properties. Yeah. And that was how I went from wanting to be in development to being on the brokerage side to then getting into residential, because once I became like a realtor, got on the MLS.
Yeah.
And started getting those working with those type of clients. Then Steve was like, here, let me throw you some leads for just purely residential. And I'm like, oh man, dude, I was going to go to an elite business school, like not for nothing. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be a real estate agent, like a soccer mom. Like, what am I doing here? I didn't tell any of my friends from school or GE. I kind of was just like quiet about it. But listen, on the brokerage side, you don't make any money unless you close deals. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, I spent the last year not working. Yeah. So like, all right, I'll just do this.
Got to get some money in.
Yeah. And at the time, Acropolis had hired this guy named Matt Salvagno. Shout out to Matt. And he spent like a month teaching me residential real estate. And I was just like, and it just immediately it kind of connected. And that was just flowing. And so I was like, oh, actually, I'm really good at this and it can be really lucrative. I need to make money if I want to do my own project. Yeah. So, I think it's a combination of with the consulting and analytical background. I feel like I can help guide people through a process. Sometimes I can talk, but also, I have the focus.
You bring a level of experience that not many realtors probably have.
I had a different background for sure. And I say this with full sincerity, even though people might be skeptical of anybody that says this type of stuff, but like I hold myself to a high degree of like integrity. And I truly think people can really feel that, in a world of like salesmen and snake oil people, and there's plenty of shady agents doing weird stuff and trying to force people into it's just like, I'm like allergic to that sort of thing, And so I think I just aim to just build good relationships and work hard for people. And I just had a lot of energy. At the time. I was like, this has got to work. I got to make something happen. And so I basically put my head down and the deal started flowing.
Nice.
So I know you've been driving the question towards grad school.
Yeah.
And it really was that. So
this is way later.
This is a couple of years later. I'd been back for a while. Yeah. I started working in 2018, ended up going back to grad school in 2020. But the big picture vision was, I'm here in Syracuse. I want to be a force for revitalization. I want to be somebody that is in the community. And I don't know what that would look like in the short term, the medium term, the long term. But I believe in Syracuse and Central New York. And I just knew that I wanted to make an impact. And in my short-term goal was make enough money so you can start building properties, investing, starting businesses. That was my short-term goal. But then my medium to long-term goal was just like, if I continue and grow in my understanding, in my, just my abilities to give back, I could see myself wanting to work for nonprofits or boards, or maybe run for local government, in a later chapter of life.
Yeah.
And I wanted to understand better how this community worked. And so I started thinking about the Maxwell MPA program, because people I really looked up to, like Rob Simpson leading Center State, Ben Walsh, the mayor, a lot of people within government and, nonprofit spaces. And even in the business world went through that program, and it was #1 ranked. And like the faculty is world-class. It's just like, we just had like this program. It was just a really wonderful program.
Right in your backyard.
Right in my backyard. And it was just an intimate network of people that really care about Syracuse and Central New York that went through that. And so I said, okay, this my GMAT score is expiring.
Yeah, I got it.
And so that's what I did.
Take advantage. Yeah.
I applied and got in and did that program full time while working full time, in real estate, and kind of just juggled both. And
was it a worthwhile investment?
Too
early to tell. I'll preface that because grad school is tricky. A lot of people will just graduate and say, I don't know what I want to do. I'm going to go to grad school. I'm like, you're just getting that much more debt. Or obviously if you have the means, your family has the means, that's great. But it's a lot of money for just a question mark of, who may end up doing the same job, who might end up getting their real estate license. And, it's like they could have maybe done that. And obviously you don't want to downplay the experience. But when you're talking a couple $100,000 potentially,
it's a big investment.
It's a huge investment. It just puts you on a personal financial deficit starting out your career that it's hard to overcome. It's hard to overcome it is really what it is.
It can be. And, again,
not saying it's not worth it. And that's 100%. Why I'm always curious to hear the stories of what you think. And it's always good for listeners.
I got a really good scholarship package.
Okay.
And so it was very low money in.
Yeah.
There was of course the opportunity cost of the time, but it wasn't like I wasn't
time away from your career.
Time away from your career. I didn't have to take out any more debt, which was nice. I would say I really built some great friendships and relationships and got to enter into a period of time where I was really thinking about government and politics and society and social issues. And I think that was really beneficial. Am I using it for my career right now? No. I have the benefit of the signaling effect of going through the program. Have I taken advantage of that at all? No. But, life's long. And I do think that was a long-term strategic move. If I ever,
that's what I say. Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. If I ran for city council, will that give me more legitimacy to have had, gone through that program?
True.
I don't know, but certainly my worldview has been broadened, and I really value the experiences that I had. One professor worked on the Clinton administration and worked alongside Janet Yellen,
Wow.
It's just so it was I really got access to some really amazing people. But would I have paid $200,000 for that? And that would not have been the wisest financial move for me, given that I didn't go then. I wasn't applying for jobs out of the program from organizations that were recruiting from that program. I just continued back working in real estate.
Yeah.
And then after I graduated, it was kind of check that box. Oh, saved up my nest egg.
Yeah.
Now it's time to refocus. I kind of closed the loop on that other part of life that I was kind of really focused on going to grad school. Okay, I did that.
Yeah.
Check. Okay, I had these goals of saving up this amount of money. Check. And now it was now it's time to get to my real mission. It took me a lot longer than I had planned, but now I was in a position where I could focus. And it was at that, I think I graduated Maxwell. It was a 12-month program. So it was in the summer. And I think maybe a month or two after graduating is when I really connected with my now business partner, Sarah Pellegrini, who's a rock star. She's amazing. You've probably interviewed her too. She's so great.
Cool.
Yeah. So we both were agents at Acropolis, and she's another rock star in her own right. And we were just talking at a company retreat, and she's like, "Hey, because she knew that I was going through grad school and then I had just finished and I was kind of juggling, and she knew that, I had some other ambitions. Mm-hmm. And she's like, so what's next? What are you doing? And at first I thought she was just asking really good questions, but pretty soon, I knew where the questions were coming from because she had the same desires and the same passions. And so I kind of told her, I was like, I want to buy a building. I want to do renovation. I want to open a business. That's what's next. And she's like, me too. And I'm like, okay. Yeah.
So does everyone.
Yeah. I was
kind of. Right?
It sounds like a cool thing, but how serious?
But who's going to actually do it? And
And so we talked. We had maybe a 45-minute conversation, hour-minute conversation there. And she's like, this week, let's go out to lunch. And I was like, okay, let's go out to lunch. Yeah, sure.
Nice.
So we go out to lunch and we talk about it more. And I was like, oh, she's serious here.
Yeah.
And I had as much as I had. and so the project would have been as big as it could have been. I thought, I'd probably like raise money through limited partners and stuff. But now if we joined forces, like not only is it twice as easy, or we can, it's like, it's good to have a partner, especially because it's making up as I go. I didn't,
you're kind of learning on the fly. So it definitely helps having a partner in that sense. It helps having
a partner. Yeah. You have a partner in your business too.
Yeah. It's there's some people say don't have a partner, and I can understand why. I say it's like a marriage.
It is a marriage,
right? Because if like you have the right life partner, life is great, and you wouldn't have it any other way. But you have the wrong partner, and life's terrible. And that's the same thing with business, at least in my experience. And you find the right balance, right? If this is like, hey, Rob, you're going to be kind of involved, but not really. So you're going to take, you're going to focus on this. You're going to have whatever percentage, but it's going to be my thing, right? I think that's always a good balance too. Trying to go in alone is tough, but also trying to go in alone where every single decision has to be made by me and Rob. That's also tough too. Cause it's like now everything takes time, especially early stage. I mean, high growth startup, in sports tech, what we were in is a little different, but that can be tough too. So it's really finding the balance. But I think having partners, the right partners is key. Partner. Yeah.
Yeah. And I gotta say, I did, like shotgun wedding it almost, it just felt
kind of new. Yeah.
It felt right. And
well, to go back to what we were saying about Syracuse, you probably knew people who knew her, and and that if she's working for Acropolis, right? People there that can maybe vouch for her. Like she didn't come out of nowhere. You had no background on her or anything. Like you had you got to trust your gut a little bit with anything, but
that's true. I trust my gut. But one other thing that's probably worth saying is that it took us like 13, 14 months to secure a project, because from the time that we said, okay, let's go figure something out, our approach was, let's go look at properties that
what you're doing anyway.
Yeah. Let's go look at commercial spaces that are, the need redevelopment, right? Something that would have a positive impact on the community. But then we also wanted to find a space that had a vacant commercial space that we could then build a business in. That was kind of what we wanted to do. And our perspective wasn't like we had an idea for a business that we wanted to force into the space. We said we want to go fall in love with the building and then have the business model for that space emerge from that space. Like go in, like what could this be? If this was the coolest thing that this could be, what is that? And that's circle one.
Find the canvas and then figure out what you're going to paint on it.
That's 100%, right? Yeah. And then of course there's a Venn diagram of like also of maybe three things. Like also what does Syracuse need?
Yeah.
And then it's also like
true product market fit a little bit. You kind of want that.
100%. And then like what's economically viable. Yeah. Right. So it's got to be all of those. But that's what we did. Like we'd find a building, get super passionate about it, and then we'd literally build out a business model for something
of what it could be, essentially. Yeah.
And we did that over and over again. But I mean, it was a really good education because I was building on pitch decks and financial modeling and like trying to research enough to be like, yes, I'm going to take my life savings and push my chips in.
For sure, yeah.
On this, you want to be
due diligence.
You want to be at least a little sure, But then, that takes time and it's a hot market, and we'd lose. We'd put in offers and we'd lose. And we eventually got under contract in one space, and then it ended up not working out with a seller. And so that didn't work out. And we were, 12, 13 months in this, and she was still right by my side, and I was still right by her side, and we were undeterred and we were committed. And so I can't, talking about the partnership, that was like a year interview where we were working together, and both of us got through that year still 100% committed.
Well, I mean, so you kind of, like it's like an early stage startup, right? Yeah. You're getting things going. You have nothing really concrete at that point. Yeah. What's nice about a partner is that maybe the days that you're not, you're questioning, you're not sure, she's ready, she's committed, she's ready to go. It inspires you to be like that, and vice versa.
100%.
Yeah.
After that one that we were under contract with didn't work out. Like it wasn't like deterred, but it was still like a big blow. And the building that we ended up buying had been for sale for a while. Ryan Benz, who's a good friend, somebody I really look up to in the community, he had it for sale, and at the time it was at a price that didn't, pull me in.
Makes sense. Yeah,
and one thing that's kind of funny is, it's worth saying that during that 12, 14 months that we were looking at buildings and coming up with concepts, we had one rule, and that was no restaurants.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
That was the rule. And that, I knew that building was a restaurant. Like when you talk about what's the highest and best use, it was the mission, but
we had our post-wedding brunch there when it was
the
mission.
Really?
Yeah. Because we were at downtown, the Marriott.
Yeah, the Marriott.
So we walked right over.
Yeah, it's right.
We had a New Year's wedding. I think we had
amazing. Yeah.
40 people RSVP for the brunch the next day at 11. I think we had about 15 show up.
That must be
a late night. I should have figured.
Exactly. That must be a really good reception. Yeah. That after party probably was great.
Yeah. I mean, it was just went so late. We were at the Westcott Theater, and they just didn't kick us out. Also, it's like 2:30 in the morning. I'm like, should probably go to the hotel.
Yeah, maybe brunch.
Yeah, exactly. It was. I mean, we almost slept through it. I mean, we set an alarm, thank God. Yeah. But yeah, so you found. So it sounded like that building had been on the market. You were kind of maybe eyeing it, seeing if. Yeah, obviously it's there. You could maybe get it for a better price. I mean, it's a unique building. It's a cool building. Yeah. And it's obviously in a great location.
It's a great location, yeah.
But you also said, right, what was your one rule? No restaurants.
Yeah.
So what happened? I mean,
she convinces me to go look at it. She's like, let's just go look at it. And I was just like, all right.
To see what it can be?
Yeah, she kind of had a hunch, I think. And so I give her, a lot of credit there. So we go in and, we've got 18-foot ceilings. We have these 10-foot by 4-foot stained glass. It's, it still has the original tin ceiling. And it's just, and I think the reason why I think I've been attracted to the built environment is because I think naturally I can see, not that I'm a visionary in like a Steve Jobs sense, but like I see what it could be. And and we got talking more and we were like, let's just evaluate it. We go to the OHA, Onondaga Historical Association, shout out to them, great resources. And we really learned, because I knew it was part of the Underground Railroad, but then we learned about the history. And if I could just give it to you briefly. Man, it was built in 1846 by a group of abolitionist Methodists. So at the time, the Methodist Church was pro-slavery, which is hard to believe, right? But this group just disagreed fundamentally on those principles. Yeah. And so they broke away from their community and their church and found the Wesleyan Methodist Church and built this building and publicly began to be politically active in the abolitionist movement, but privately, secretly, they began harboring fugitive slaves, which was illegal at the time. The Fugitive Slave Act was around. I mean, if you came across a fugitive slave in the North, you had to return them. So they were breaking the law based off of human rights principles, and to a massive degree, according to the OHA, they've got some estimates based off of letters and records. They believe that 30 to 50 slaves on average per month took sanctuary in that cellar, in that building. So do the math. Like those are huge, huge numbers. And so this place is a landmark. Frederick Douglass gave a speech and was elected to a national organization in that building. And it's just Syracuse has a we should be proud of our history in the abolitionist movement. And that building was just a very huge contributing property to the story of Syracuse. And, when we got to it, it was consumed by vines. Ryan had put some love into it, but there was still a long way to go.
Still need more TLC.
It's an 1846 building, that had been beaten by being a restaurant for the past 20 years. But it was the oldest functioning church right before it got converted to
Was it the mission first, or was it something else before that?
Yeah, the mission was. I think there might have been another restaurant.
Okay, I was wondering.
There was a flash in the pan, but the mission was really the first one, and they were there for whatever it was, 20, 25 years. Yeah. But so I fell in love with this building. It was just so. It was so in line with what Sarah and I's heart was for the project. It was a building that, although it was small, like really meant something to Syracuse. It really was tied to some of our history that we should be proud of. It's just a gorgeous space that we could just see could be something so much greater. Yeah. And it was small enough that, we could just do it ourselves. With like the larger projects, we'd have to follow like a development model where we were the developer sponsors and we, you had to get some financing and maybe have limited partner investors, and it'd been this whole thing. This we could just do us. We didn't have to wait. At this point, we had been going in circles for over a year. We just wanted to go.
Yeah.
And so the business model that was Noble Cellar, which is a play on words.
Yeah.
Because it was that cellar.
Exactly.
In
connected the dots a little earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, that's why I was going to ask why the name, but yeah, it makes good sense.
And because it's a wine focused concept, because we can't serve liquor there because we're within 200 feet of the Baptist church that's next to us.
Oh, no way. Really? So you can't ever.
So what Noble Cellar was like, the goal was, of course, we want it to be the only thing that we could think of, or the best thing that we could think of, that would bring that building to life and be sustainable and really be an asset to the community. Because it's off the beaten path. It's not in Armory Square. You're not getting foot traffic. It's got to be a destination. You can't serve liquor. It's not small, but it had a kitchen and a hood already. So we had seen what St. Urban had done for the community, and it was smaller, and they were delivering like a Michelin level experience and doing really wonderful things. And we were looking at, in larger metropolitan areas, how restaurants in third spaces were becoming increasingly more important to culture. We can figure out why that is, in a secular post-religious society. But seriously, you go to a larger metropolitan area, and it's like, it seems like social life revolves around going out, eating. It's just where people gather. They're cultural anchors to communities. They're just very important spaces. And so bigger picture too, we knew, Micron's coming, which I don't think we knew at the time, but our goal is like, we want to bring people. How do we get people to come to Syracuse? How do we get people that maybe were from here that are, visiting their family to be like, I'm moving back? Or how do we get people that are being recruited at larger organizations to come and take the job here in Syracuse? And it's,
they come visit, they eat there.
I'm sold. That sounds like so ridiculous.
No, I mean, that's the experience. I went to this awesome restaurant. I mean, that you need those people make those judgment decisions. I remember when I went to Austin, I spent like 2 nights there, and I went to like 2 bars. I'm like, this place is the best. Yeah, I'm like, you just have to have those type of places for that. I mean, that's all it takes to get people here.
That's the entry point of experiencing social life or cultural life. So that was the mission. We said, the culinary scene is so important to perceived quality of life. This building is so wonderful that we're talking about, again, like Venn diagram. All these things are important. Where does it converge? And it's like, this is the business model that makes the most sense. We can build something that's just as beautiful as we could with our budget and our abilities. And we can just put the best food with the best service that we can. And talk about like making the world a better place. I think it makes Syracuse a little bit better of a place. We're not 100%. We're not like solving poverty or like, doing anything, but there are more than one ways to make the world a better place. We need the people that are addressing the stuff that's bad in the world, right? That's addressing, we need the nonprofits, and I want to be part of those organizations too, that are helping starving people, in third world countries, or, tackling social issues. Like that is so important.
Or building houses for the homeless, like Andrew Lanetta here.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And it's awesome. But you're right. People also need a place to just go with their friends and have a good experience. I mean, that's what gets them through the week. That's what gets them motivated to do that other stuff. Like, it's a balance, like anything.
Yeah. If we're going to live here, that was my entry point into making Syracuse a little bit better.
Yeah.
And so that was the mission. That was the purpose behind it.
And it seems to be working out pretty well. I mean, I've heard numerous people rave about it. I haven't been, but I haven't been to many restaurants. I got 3 young kids, so it's very hard to even get anywhere. But I feel like we've tried to go a couple times, and we just couldn't get reservations. And that's obviously a testament to what you guys are doing there. I mean, obviously it's not a huge place, but you have the demand. I mean, people are excited. People want to eat there, and I'm excited to try it. But I mean, I'm also just curious. Doesn't sound like you guys had any background in the hospitality industry. Like, we're going to do this, we're going to have the best service, the best food. Where do you even start?
Dude,
I mean,
we were, again, you got to have a little bit of naivety. I don't know, a little bit of arrogance. We definitely like jumped in with both both feet, and it was super hard. It was way
Sure.
it was way harder than any degree or
Yeah.
any other job.
Any real estate transaction.
For sure. It's like without a doubt. Sarah had worked at Dinosaur Barbecue when she was younger. Different bit in like high school and college, but still she knew a little bit. But for me, when I worked at GE Capital, I actually worked within a hospitality lending group.
Okay.
And so that group,
it's an important side of the business.
They lent money to, hotels and restaurants.
Yeah.
And being in that market intelligence team, my job was to, research the economy, research the industry, the sectors, the segments, kind of connect the dots between the economy, consumer behavior, what was happening there. And so I did spend a lot of time thinking and researching and writing about the restaurant industry in general, which is interesting. And part of what I did also was kind of arm the risk team with the ability to evaluate like new upstart concepts and trends to see if they would lend money to that.
Yeah.
And so I was plugged in from that perspective too. Never thought it was going to be anything I would put into action, but I definitely think it and both Sarah and I lived in larger metropolitan areas. So I think she had experienced high level cuisine, She also had a background in interior design too. So she also had a design sense. So I felt like we were able to put our heads together and aim for a goal that if we were able to hit that would be successful.
Yeah.
Just with our ability to create business models, understand the trends, understanding what's worked in other markets. And we just took it on faith that we'd be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I will say straight up, what do they say? Like build it and they will come, or like jump out of the plane and build the parachute on the way down. I will say, like Sarah and I, we work super hard, truly. And also we did get a little bit lucky. I would say we got lucky, with St. Urban moving to New York City. We got a lot of really, really great staff to be part of our opening team. And that really helped. There was a couple key players that were so great. Our first sous chef came from there. Our first manager came from there. And then a couple, like a server and a server assistant. And so we got to pull some really top talent right away. And then we also just got like super lucky in interviewing some people where, for example, we were interviewing this guy, Tony. He had lived in San Diego for 20 years, working at, amazing bars and restaurants there. And he just happened to move here to be closer to family. And we just went live with the posting when he first came here, and we got like an amazing top talent. And then he tells me, he's like, "You guys looking for a pastry chef?" My wife's a pastry chef, and she had worked for like some celebrity, like Iron TV chef out there. She'd worked for the Ritz-Carlton. She was amazing, just top talent. And it was just amazing how we just kept getting connected with just really, really great staff, front of house and back of house. And when I think about like one of the things, like, well, why were we able to do it? That's a big reason, right? It's getting those people with that domain expertise and competence. And I think Sarah and I are both really good judges of people. And I think we did a good job of communicating the vision, because it was sincere. It's like, hey guys, this is the big picture of what we're trying to do for Syracuse. And that's why we're trying to create this in this building.
Yeah.
And, we're not going to sit here and micromanage you leaders. We're not going to tell you, chef, how to do this. Cook. No, we're going to say like, based off the market research, like this is probably about as expensive as we can go, and we need to keep our costs in line. And, we know the product and the experience that we want, but also we're going to empower you to be able to work creatively to make that happen, front of house and back of house.
Yeah.
And so I think we were really able to, inspire and attract people that wanted to make an impact. Because in a lot of other places, especially if you're a chef, it's a chef-owned place. They've got their ways of doing things, especially in Syracuse. We have some great restaurants, but how much creative liberty do you have? The place that's been here for 20 years, they're doing it like they're doing it, and they're doing it because they've narrowed in on what works. So if you're somebody that like wants to cook from scratch and create like beautiful, amazing dishes, you know,
you don't get that opportunity.
They're few and far between,
Yeah.
you know, just let's put it that way. And same thing with the service element. It's just, there's just that style of interaction doesn't fit a lot of concepts that are here.
Yeah.
And so I think people were really excited to create and to be empowered.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's key to any business, is giving people that opportunity to feel like they have skin in the game, and they have the freedom to make choices, to make mistakes, but to learn and to grow, right? Because you're right. If you're just saying, hey, I need you to do this, or if you and Sarah were like, no, we're going to, you know, this is what we got to do. We're going to cook this. We're going to, like, you guys aren't even, you know, you have no background. You knew that. And everyone, you know, I think that's important in any business. Like, you only really do, any one individual only does like 1-2 things really well. Then it's the other stuff. You got to trust other people, and you have to empower them to, you know, help them, and vice versa. And it sounds like that's what you're doing there. And that's probably why it has, you know, you always got to get lucky within that, like any business. And, you know, the combinations of stars aligned a little bit. And obviously you have one of the top restaurants in Syracuse, which is awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. But I will say it's such an interesting experience, you know, because I'm really not qualified to do any position, you know, except for maybe be the host or wash the dishes.
Yeah.
And I do.
Welcome in, folks.
And I've done both plenty of times, you know, because, you know, that's just what the job requires. But yeah, learning to be a leader when I don't have the domain competence is an interesting balance, you know, because you know, Sarah,
a lot of people say you got to do everything, you know, within the organization to be able to teach it. It's like, well, clearly you don't.
I can't, you know, and so I think striking that balance of like having to maintain the big picture vision of what do we want to be, and also, you know, the financial vision of like what is economically viable. We got to make sure this thing is sustainable, and also really, you know, have a relentless customer experience perspective. Like, what is the guest experience? Yeah. Because that's something I have a lot to say about. Yeah. You know, and of course. So Sarah and I, through that, like, our job was to maintain that picture, and then make, you know, influence and work collaboratively with the people that we were trusting to kind of make sure that we're hitting the targets that we wanted to hit. And so that was the balance. But yeah. So grateful that we were able to find good people and good staff.
Yeah, it's huge. And before, you know, we've been going almost an hour here. Before we wrap up, you guys have anything else on the horizon, or maybe you personally, or, you know, you and Sarah, or, you know, what's next? Right? Is it gonna be another restaurant?
Yeah, I mean, I think our mission hasn't changed. You know, I think we have a heart to.
Are you still actively searching like you were prior to Noble Cellar opening? I guess that's a question.
We have not started that search in earnest yet for project number 2. You know, I think now we've learned a lot.
Getting to that point.
Exactly. We're getting close.
Yeah,
we're getting close. I got to say, again, I really didn't know what I didn't know when I jumped in with both feet. But, you know, fine dining in a Rust Belt city, you know, it's tough. You know, because we need top talent, and we know that food costs and labor costs and operating expenses have ballooned at a rate that's much faster than wages and disposable income. Yeah. And so, you know, it's tougher to stabilize and just feel like really confident that it's, you know, that we're ready to then take on another baby. Yeah. And it's great. You know, I don't mean to say anything, but, you know, I think it's like a toddler. You know, I think we're ready to have another newborn, but we want to maybe
they're still kind of a baby.
Put it in diapers first. Make sure it's walking, because, you know, again, we want what's next to be of that same caliber. Yeah. You know, we you know, obviously I don't think it's going to be fine dining, but, you know, we've got lots of concepts, you know, in the back of our head, and it would be then, you know, again, falling in love with a building, finding the right concept for that space. It's coming. Yeah.
Well, Rob, you know, I appreciate you coming on here, sharing your story. It's so cool to hear how you came to be doing what you're doing. And obviously, congratulations with all the success with the Noble Cellar. And your next venture, you know, we'll get you back here. You can tell us all about it. It'll be fun to have you back on.
All right. Anytime. Would love to do that.
Brother.
Yeah. Thanks so much. It was great meeting you.
Of course. Thanks. You too.